First Contact Protocol Doctor. Marcus Chen wiped sweat from his forehead as he studied the alien device humming softly on his workbench. The research station on Kepler 442b was always too warm, but today felt different. Today marked 3 months since humanity's first peaceful contact with an alien species, and Marcus still couldn't believe he was working alongside them. The Drakari had arrived without warning, their sleek ships appearing in orbit like silver teardrops against the orange sky. Unlike the aggressive encounters humans had feared, they came with scientific instruments instead of weapons. Their message was simple. They had detected unusual energy signatures from the human research station and wanted to investigate. Captain. Elena Torres had handled first contact with remarkable calm. As station commander, she made the decision that would change everything. Instead of calling for military backup, she invited the aliens to land. If they wanted us dead, she had reasoned, they could have done it from orbit. The lead Drakari, scientist who stepped off their shuttle, was Commander Zara Vex. She stood nearly 7 feet tall, her reptilian skin shifting between deep green and blue depending on the light. Her eyes were large and golden, with pupils that could dilate completely in dim conditions. Most striking were the intricate patterns of bioluminescent scales along her neck and arms that pulsed gently when she was thinking. Marcus remembered their first meeting in the station's main lab. He had been running diagnostics on a quantum resonance detector when she approached. Her movements were fluid and precise, like a dancer who had trained for decades. When she spoke, her voice carried harmonic undertones that made his equipment vibrate slightly. "Your energy manipulation techniques are primitive but creative," she had said, examining his work. "We use similar principles but with crystalline matrices instead of metallic conductors." That conversation led to weeks of collaboration. Zara brought knowledge of energy systems centuries ahead of human technology, while Marcus contributed what she called innovative chaos, the human tendency to try unconventional solutions. Working together, they had made breakthrough after breakthrough. Their joint research was revolutionizing both species' understanding of quantum mechanics. The device on his workbench was their latest creation, a hybrid power cell that combined human engineering with Drakari crystal technology. The laboratory door slid open with a soft hiss, and Zara entered carrying a tray of the bitter tea her people preferred. She moved with that same graceful precision, but Marcus had learned to read the subtle signs of her mood. The way her bioluminescent scales pulsed slower than usual meant she was tired. "The harmonic frequency is still unstable," she said, setting down the tray and peering at their device. "Perhaps we need to adjust the crystalline matrix alignment." Marcus nodded, pulling up holographic displays that showed energy flow patterns. "I've been thinking about that. What if we're approaching this backwards? Instead of trying to stabilize the frequency, what if we let it fluctuate within controlled parameters?" Zara's golden eyes focused on him intently. This was her thinking expression, the one that usually preceded either brilliant insights or polite dismissal of his more outlandish ideas. Her scales began pulsing faster as she processed the concept. "Controlled instability," she murmured, her translator struggling with the concept. "Your species has a remarkable tolerance for uncertainty. Sometimes uncertainty is more useful than stability," Marcus replied, making adjustments to their prototype. "Rigid systems break under pressure. Flexible systems adapt." As they worked side by side, Marcus found himself stealing glances at his alien colleague. Over the past weeks, he had come to appreciate not just her scientific brilliance but her personality. She had a dry sense of humor that emerged when she was comfortable, and she asked questions about human culture with genuine curiosity. The Drakari delegation included cultural specialists and linguists, but Zara seemed most interested in practical applications of knowledge. She wanted to understand how things worked, not just what they were called. This made her an ideal research partner for someone like Marcus, who preferred hands-on experimentation to theoretical discussion. "The energy output is increasing," Zara observed, monitoring their displays. "Your fluctuation theory appears to be working." Marcus watched the readings climb steadily. Their hybrid power cell was producing 30% more energy than previous designs, with stable output despite the controlled frequency variations. This could revolutionize power generation for both our species. Indeed, the applications for deep space exploration alone. Zara paused mid-sentence, her scales suddenly brightening. Marcus, look at the quantum resonance patterns. He shifted his attention to the quantum display and felt his breath catch. The patterns weren't just stable, they were beautiful. Flowing. Geometric shapes danced across the screen in perfect harmony, each frequency creating visual music that seemed almost alive. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered, mesmerized by the display. "It's like the energy itself is dancing." Zara moved closer to get a better view, and Marcus became acutely aware of her presence beside him. Her height meant he had to look up to meet her eyes, and this close he could see the intricate details of her scales. Each one seemed to contain tiny galaxies of color that shifted with her emotional state. "The resonance patterns are creating a feedback loop," she explained, her voice carrying excitement. "The frequencies are not just stable, they are harmonizing with the crystalline matrix in ways we did not predict." As they watched, the patterns began forming more complex shapes. Spirals within spirals, fractals that seemed to extend infinitely, inward. The energy readings showed impossible efficiency levels, as if their device was drawing power from the quantum foam itself. "Zara, this is incredible," Marcus said, turning to face her. "Your people's crystal technology combined with human engineering, we've created something neither species could achieve alone." She looked down at him, her golden eyes reflecting the glow from their displays. In that moment, surrounded by the soft hum of their creation and the dancing lights of impossible energy patterns, Marcus felt a connection that transcended species boundaries. "You know," he said softly, "when you get excited about research like this, with your scales lighting up and your eyes focused so intensely, you're actually really cute." The effect was immediate and dramatic. Zara's scales flashed from blue-green to deep purple in less than a second. Her golden eyes widened and she took a step backward as if he had struck her. The change in coloration spread from her face down her neck, visible even beneath her scientific robes. "What did you say?" she whispered, her voice carrying harmonics he had never heard before. Marcus realized he had said something wrong, but wasn't sure what. I said you were cute when you get excited about research? Did the translator malfunction?" The laboratory fell silent except for the humming of their equipment. Zara stared at him with an expression he couldn't read, her scales now pulsing rapidly between purple and deep red. Her breathing had changed, becoming faster and shallower. "You called me cute?" she repeated, as if testing the word. Before Marcus could respond, Zara's hand moved faster than his eyes could follow. Her palm struck his chest with enough force to lift him off his feet and send him flying backward across the laboratory. He crashed into a bank of equipment displays, alarms immediately beginning to wail as systems overloaded. Through the ringing in his ears, Marcus heard gasps from the laboratory entrance. The rest of the Drakari delegation had arrived for their scheduled meeting, and they stood frozen in the doorway. Elder Crix, their cultural advisor, made a sound, like a sharp intake of breath followed by rapid clicking noises. "Impossible," Crix whispered in heavily accented English. The coloration, she actually—" Marcus struggled to his feet, his chest aching where Zara had hit him. The force of her blow had been incredible. He estimated she was at least 3 times stronger than a human of equivalent size. But what confused him more was the reaction of the other Drakari. They weren't angry or alarmed. They looked shocked, but also excited. Zara stood motionless in the center of the laboratory, her scales still cycling through deep purples and reds. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides, and she seemed to be struggling with some internal conflict. Captain Torres arrived at a run, drawn by the alarms. She took in the scene quickly. Marcus picking himself up from a pile of damaged equipment, Zara standing rigid with unusual coloration, and the Drakari delegation whispering among themselves in their clicking language. "What happened here?" Torres demanded, her hand instinctively moving toward her sidearm. Elder Crick stepped forward, his own scales showing patterns Marcus had learned meant deep thought. Captain Torres, there's been a significant cultural incident. Dr. Chen appears to have unknowingly triggered a biological response in Commander Vex. What kind of biological response? Torres asked, her eyes moving between Marcus and Zara. Among our people, Crix explained carefully. Certain compliments can only be given by potential mates. The word your Dr. Chen used, combined with Commander Vex's coloration response, indicates that her body has identified him as a genetically compatible partner. The laboratory fell silent again as everyone processed this information. Marcus felt his face heating up as he realized the implications of what had happened. He had accidentally made what amounted to a marriage proposal to an alien warrior who could literally punch him through a wall. I didn't know, he said quietly, looking at Zara. I'm sorry if I offended you or your culture. Zara finally moved, turning to face him. Her scales had settled into a steady deep purple that Crix seemed to find significant. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. You were not offensive, Marcus Chen. You were unexpected. The way she said his name with those harmonic undertones made something flutter in his chest that had nothing to do with the impact of her punch. Looking into her golden eyes, Marcus realized that despite the cultural misunderstanding and the physical pain, he didn't regret what he had said. So what happens now? Captain Torres asked Elder Crix. The old Drakari considered this question carefully. Now we must determine whether this accidental bonding indication can be properly addressed. In our culture, such responses are not taken lightly. Marcus looked at Zara, who was studying him with an intensity that made his heart race. Their scientific collaboration had already proven that humans and Drakari could accomplish incredible things together. The question now was whether they could navigate the complex waters of interspecies relations with the same success. As alarms continued to wail around them and their hybrid power cell hummed with impossible energy patterns, Marcus realized that his biggest challenge wasn't going to be bridging the gap between human and alien technology. It was going to be understanding the bridge that had somehow formed between two very different hearts. Understanding and unity. 3 days had passed since what Elder Crix diplomatically referred to as the incident. Marcus sat in his quarters, staring at medical reports that made his head spin. Dr. Sarah Kim, the station's physician, had run every test imaginable to understand the biological implications of what had happened. Your brain chemistry shows elevated levels of oxytocin and dopamine, she explained, pointing to the readouts. Typical bonding responses in humans. But here's the interesting part. Your bioelectric field has somehow synchronized with Commander Vex's natural electromagnetic signature. Marcus rubbed his still tender chest where Zara had struck him. What does that mean exactly? Honestly, I have no idea. We're in completely uncharted territory here. Dr. Kim pulled up comparative scans. The Drakari medical data shows that Zara's experiencing similar changes. Her scales have maintained that purple coloration for 3 days straight, which apparently is unprecedented. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry to his quarters. Marcus opened the door to find Elder Crix standing in the corridor, his expression unreadable. Dr. Chen, may I speak with you privately? Marcus gestured for the elderly Drakari to enter. Crix moved slowly, his advanced age evident in the way his scales had faded to pale silver. He settled into the specially reinforced chair that had been installed for Drakari visitors. I believe it is time you understood what has truly occurred, Crix began, his voice carrying the weight of centuries. Among my people, the coloration response Commander Vex displayed is called Thexara, the soul recognition. It occurs perhaps once in 1,000 lifetimes. Soul recognition? Marcus leaned forward, intrigued despite his confusion. Our ancestors believed that certain individuals are created as perfect complements to one another, not just genetically, but intellectually, emotionally, spiritually. When such individuals meet, their bodies recognize the compatibility before their minds do. Crix's scales shifted to show patterns of deep respect mixed with concern. The problem, Dr. Chen, is that Thexara has never occurred between different species before. Many of our delegation believe it is impossible, that Commander Vex is simply experiencing some form of biological malfunction. And what do you believe? The old Drakari was quiet for a long moment. I believe that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any of us imagined. Your species and mine have already proven that cooperation can achieve what neither could accomplish alone. Perhaps this is simply the next step in that process. Marcus stood and walked to his window, gazing out at the alien landscape of Kepler 442b. Two suns hung in the orange sky, casting double shadows across the crystalline formations that dotted the horizon. It was a world where impossible things happened daily, where human dreams met alien reality. Elder Crix, I need to ask you something important. Is Zara in danger from her own people because of this? Crix's scales darkened with worry. Some believe she has been contaminated by prolonged exposure to human thoughts and emotions. There are calls for her to return to our homeworld for purification rituals. That's ridiculous. Zara is brilliant, probably the finest scientist I've ever worked with. Her people should be celebrating her achievements, not questioning her biology. You speak of her with great respect, Crix observed. This is good. If you truly care for her well-being, you must understand that challenging our cultural beliefs directly will only make her situation worse. Before Marcus could respond, the station's emergency alarm began blaring. Red lights flashed in the corridors as Captain Torres's voice echoed through the communication system. All senior staff to the command center immediately. We have a situation. Marcus and Crix hurried through the corridors, joining the stream of personnel converging on the command center. The large central display showed a three-dimensional map of the local star system, with multiple red contacts moving toward their position. Unknown vessels detected, reported Lieutenant Commander Nash, the station's tactical officer. Configuration matches Zephyrian Empire warships. 27 ships total approaching at high speed. Captain Torres stood at the center of the room, her expression grim. The Zephyrians have been expanding aggressively throughout this sector. They consider any advanced technology a threat to their dominance. Commander Zara Vex entered the command center with several other Drakari scientists. Marcus noticed immediately that her scales were still that deep purple color, and several of her colleagues kept glancing at her with expressions of disapproval. Captain Torres, Zara announced, our sensors indicate the Zephyrian fleet is armed with quantum disruptors. They intend to destroy this station and any technology they cannot claim. How long until they arrive? Torres asked. 18 hours. At current speed, replied Nash. The command center erupted in controlled chaos as personnel began implementing emergency protocols. Marcus found himself standing next to Zara, acutely aware of her presence and the tension radiating from her colleagues. Commander, he said quietly, are you all right? She turned to look at him, her golden eyes reflecting the red emergency lighting. My people believe I have been compromised by exposure to human influences. They question whether I can be trusted to make rational decisions. That's absurd. You're the most rational person I know, human or otherwise. Zara's scales flickered briefly to a lighter shade of purple. Your faith in me is appreciated, but faith may not be enough to save us from the Zephyrians. Captain Torres called for attention. People, we have 18 hours to figure out how to defend against a force that outnumbers us 27-1. The nearest Earth fleet is 3 weeks away. Any suggestions? Lieutenant Commander Nash pulled up tactical displays. The station's defensive systems are designed for scientific protection, not military engagement. We have basic shields and 6 automated defense platforms. The Drakari ships? Torres asked. Elder. Crix shook his head. We brought scientific vessels, not warships. Our shields are strong, but our weapons are minimal. Marcus studied the tactical displays, his mind racing through possibilities. The Zephyrians were known for their aggressive expansion tactics, but they were also predictable. They relied on overwhelming force rather than clever strategy. What? If we don't fight them directly? He suggested. What if we use the one advantage we have? Technology they don't understand. Explain, Torres commanded. Marcus moved to the display controls, pulling up schematics of their hybrid power systems. Zara and I have been working on quantum resonance technology that combines human and Drakari principles. We've achieved energy outputs that should be theoretically impossible. You're talking about the device that was damaged during the incident? Torres asked carefully. It wasn't damaged, Zara said, stepping forward. The quantum resonance is stronger than ever. We've been afraid to test it at full capacity because we don't fully understand the implications. Marcus felt a spark of excitement as an idea formed. What if we don't need to understand it completely? What if we just need to use it? He began pulling up more technical displays, his fingers flying over the holographic controls. The Zephyrians use brute force tactics because they don't believe in sophisticated defense systems. They'll expect us to either surrender or put up a token resistance. And instead, Torres prompted, instead we give them something they've never encountered before, a defense system that adapts and evolves in real time, using quantum principles that even we don't fully comprehend. Zara's eyes widened as she followed his reasoning. You're proposing to weaponize our research? Not weaponize exactly. Transform it. Use the same quantum resonance principles to create a defensive field that can neutralize their weapons. Elder Crix looked skeptical. Dr. Chen, you're talking about using untested technology in a life-or-death situation. The risks are enormous. The risks of doing nothing are bigger, Marcus replied. Besides, this is what humans do best. We improvise, we adapt, we find solutions that nobody else would think of. Captain Torres studied the technical displays. How long would it take to implement this defensive system? Marcus looked at Zara, who was already running calculations in her head. 16 hours, she said. If we work together and ignore safety protocols. Absolutely not, protested one of the other Drakari scientists. Commander Vex's judgment has been compromised by her biological response to the human. We cannot trust her with decisions of this magnitude. The command center fell silent. Marcus felt anger rising in his chest as he saw the doubt in the faces around him. These people were questioning Zara's competence based on biological responses she couldn't control. With respect, Marcus said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. Commander Vex has contributed more to our understanding of advanced physics in 3 months than some scientists accomplish in entire careers. Her biological response doesn't change the fact that she's brilliant. Zara's scales brightened slightly, but her expression remained professional. Dr. Chen, I appreciate your support, but perhaps someone else should take the lead on this project. No, Marcus said firmly. We developed this technology together. We understand how it works better than anyone else. If we're going to save the station, we need to do it together. Captain Torres looked around the room, reading the tension in both human and Drakari faces. Dr. Chen, Commander Vex, you have 16 hours to implement your quantum defense system. Everyone else, we prepare for the possibility that their plan doesn't work. As the meeting broke up, Marcus found himself alone with Zara in the corridor outside the command center. Her purple scales seemed to pulse with nervous energy. Marcus, she said quietly, you didn't have to defend me like that. Your reputation could be damaged by association with my condition. He stepped closer, looking up into her golden eyes. Zara, I don't care what anyone thinks about biological responses or cultural protocols. I care about you, not just as a research partner, but as whatever this is between us. She studied his face intently. Among my people, such feelings are not expressed lightly. The implications of Thexara extend far beyond simple attraction. Then maybe it's time both our peoples learned something new, Marcus replied. Maybe the universe is trying to tell us that some connections transcend species boundaries. Zara's scales shifted to a lighter, more vibrant purple. You truly believe this quantum defense system will work? I believe that, when we work together, we can accomplish impossible things. And right now, impossible is exactly what we need. They spent the next 14 hours in a state of controlled chaos, racing against time to implement their untested technology. Human engineers worked alongside Drakari scientists, sharing knowledge and techniques that had never been combined before. The language barriers seemed to dissolve under the pressure of necessity. Marcus found himself admiring not just Zara's scientific brilliance, but her leadership skills. She managed to unite the mixed teams, finding ways to bridge cultural differences through shared purpose. Her scales had returned to their normal blue-green coloration while working, but Marcus noticed they shifted back to purple whenever she looked at him. The resonance patterns are stable, Zara reported as they made final adjustments to the quantum field generators. But Marcus, the power requirements are enormous. If this fails, we'll lose all defensive capabilities. Then we better make sure it doesn't fail, he replied, running final diagnostics on the human-designed control systems. The Zephyrian fleet dropped out of hyperspace exactly on schedule, their massive dreadnoughts filling the view screens with angular menace. Captain Torres stood in the command center, watching as the enemy ships took aggressive formations. "Incoming transmission," reported the communications officer. The main screen filled with the image of a reptilian face covered in metallic scales. The Zephyrian commander's voice was harsh and mechanical. "Primitive species, you will surrender all advanced technology and submit to Zephyrian authority. Resistance will result in complete destruction." Torres stepped forward. "This is Captain Elena Torres of the Earth Research Station. We are conducting peaceful scientific research under interspecies cooperation agreements." The Zephyrian commander's laugh was like grinding metal. "Cooperation between species is weakness. You will comply or be eliminated." The transmission ended, and immediately the enemy ships began their attack run. Energy weapons lit up space as they fired at maximum range, testing the station's defensive capabilities. "Quantum defense system online," Marcus reported from the engineering station. "All parameters are within acceptable ranges." The first enemy salvo struck the quantum field surrounding the station. Instead of the expected explosion, the energy weapons seemed to simply disappear. The quantum resonance absorbed the attack energy and converted it into harmless background radiation. "Impossible," breathed Lieutenant Commander Nash. "Their weapons just stopped existing." The Zephyrian fleet increased their attack intensity, pouring more energy into their assault. The quantum defense system responded by adapting, its resonance patterns shifting to match each new frequency. What had started as a desperate last-ditch effort was becoming something beautiful, a perfect dance between attacking force and adaptive defense. "The system is learning," Zara observed, her scales brightening with excitement. "Each attack makes it stronger, more sophisticated." Marcus watched the tactical displays with growing amazement. It's not just defending against their weapons, it's analyzing their technology and finding ways to make it irrelevant. The Zephyrian commander's face reappeared on the screen, his expression now showing confusion and rage. "What sorcery is this? Our weapons are useless against your defenses." "It's not sorcery," Torres replied calmly. "It's science. The kind of science that happens when different species work together instead of trying to dominate each other." The battle continued for another hour, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The Zephyrian fleet's weapons were completely ineffective against the quantum defense system, while their own ships began experiencing system failures as the resonance field interfered with their technology. Finally, the enemy commander made a strategic decision. "This engagement is unprofitable. We will report your unusual defensive capabilities to our superiors." The Zephyrian fleet retreated, disappearing into hyperspace as quickly as they had arrived. The command center erupted in cheers as the all-clear signal sounded. Marcus found himself swept up in a celebratory hug from Zara, her strength lifting him off his feet. When she set him down, he noticed that her scales had shifted to a brilliant golden color he had never seen before. "Is that normal?" he asked. Elder Crix approached them, his ancient face showing what might have been a smile. "Dr. Chen, that coloration indicates joy, pride, and deep affection. It is the color of a Drakari who has found her perfect complement." "And what does that mean for us?" Marcus asked. "It means," Crix said, "that perhaps it is time for both our species to learn new ways of thinking about family, partnership, and love." Captain Torres joined them, her expression showing relief and wonder. "Well, people, We've just proven that human creativity and Drakari knowledge can create miracles. The question is, what do we do for an encore? Marcus looked at Zara, whose golden scales were pulsing with happy light. I think we keep exploring the impossible. Together. As the station returned to normal operations, Marcus realized that their quantum defense system had done more than just protect them from the Zephyrians. It had proven that cooperation between species could achieve things that neither could accomplish alone. The resonance patterns they had created were still active, still learning, still adapting. In the days that followed, delegations from both Earth and the Drakari homeworld arrived to study the new technology. Scientists from both species worked side by side, sharing knowledge and pushing the boundaries of what was possible. Marcus and Zara continued their research, developing new applications for quantum resonance technology that promised to revolutionize space travel, energy production, and planetary defense. Their partnership had become legendary among both species, a symbol of what could be achieved when different worlds came together. But for Marcus, the most important discovery wasn't technological. It was the realization that the universe was vast enough to contain all kinds of love, all kinds of partnership, all kinds of family. When Zara's scales glowed golden in the light of their shared laboratory, he knew they had found something precious, a connection that transcended species, culture, and everything that had once seemed impossible. The research station continued its work, but now it served a new purpose. It had become a bridge between worlds, a place where the impossible became routine and where love could bloom in the most unexpected forms. And in the quiet moments between breakthroughs, Marcus would look at Zara and remember that sometimes the best discoveries were the ones that found you, rather than the ones you went looking for.